Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome into the Bucknuts Morning 5 on Monday, January 5th, 2015. I am Dave Biddle. We're going to get to Bill Kurelic and discuss football recruiting later in the show, but I want to start off talking about Ohio State's matchup against Oregon 1 week from tonight in the national championship game. The Ducks are favored by 7 points, and I love that the Buckeyes are once again in the underdog role. In case you needed a reminder, Urban Meyer is 5-0 when Ohio State is an underdog during his 3 seasons in Columbus. Can he make it 6-0 and bring home all the marbles? My prediction is yes. Oregon is excellent. Marcus Mariota is a huge upgrade over Alabama's Blake Sims, and that's an understatement. And quarterback is the most important position on the field, so it will of course be the toughest test of the season for the Buckeyes defense. But as for the rest of Oregon's team, I think Alabama was stronger than the Ducks in most areas. And if Ohio State can go into SEC territory and handle the Crimson Tide like they did, there's no reason to think that they can't go to Dallas and do the same to the Ducks. And as we all know, 42-35 doesn't do justice to how the Buckeyes beat up Alabama last Thursday in the Sugar Bowl. If not for shooting themselves in the foot several times in the first half, that game could have been a blowout, or at least a much more sizable victory for Ohio State. Oregon is number 3 in the country in total offense and number 2 in scoring offense, but they're only 84th in the country in total defense, although to their credit, they are 27th in scoring defense. Still, I think the Buckeyes will move the ball and score in bunches against the number 84 total defense in the land. One thing to keep in mind is Ohio State is a very balanced team from top to bottom, and that's another reason I like the Buckeyes to win in this game. Ohio State is 9th nationally in total offense, 5th in scoring offense, 17th in total defense, and 26th in scoring defense. That's a balanced team right there, my friends. 7-point underdogs? Thank you. We appreciate it. You're feeding right into the master motivator's hands, Urban Meyer. Now for the latest on recruiting, specifically how Ohio State's recruits did in the various high school All-American games over the weekend. Let's go out to the dean of Ohio State football recruiting, Bill Kurelic. Hey Bill, do you think these high school all-star games are a good measuring stick for players?
I don't put a tremendous amount of stock in the high school all-star games as predictors of future college success, but overall I felt the Buckeye commitments accounted for themselves pretty well in both the Under Armour All-American game and the U.S. Army All-American Bowl. Let's start with the Under Armour All-American game on Friday. That featured 2 Ohio State commitments, defensive lineman Ja'Shawn Cornell and defensive back return man Eric Glover Williams. Interestingly enough, Cornell stood out in the practice sessions while Glover Williams stood out in the game itself. By all accounts, Cornell was outstanding in the practices leading up to the Under Armour All-American game, and then in the game, Glover Williams played both cornerback and returned punts and kickoffs, and he had a 47-yard punt return for a touchdown for his team's only touchdown of the game. Also had a kick return of about 40 yards, and announcer Tom Luganbill mentioned him at halftime as one of the standouts of the game. As far as the U.S. Army All-American Bowl on Saturday, that featured quarterback Torrance Gibson, running back Michael Weber, offensive lineman Matthew Burrell, defensive end Draymond Jones, linebacker Jerome Baker, and long snapper Liam McCullough. Unfortunately, linebacker Justin Hilliard did not play in the game. He did not make the trip because he is recovering from a minor medical procedure. But the Buckeye commitments that did play in the game, let's start with Torrance Gibson. He looked solid, very athletic, as one would guess. He is one of the country's premier athletes. He had some nice zip on the ball and generally looked pretty good overall in the game on Saturday afternoon. Running back Michael Weber had some nice runs on Saturday. He showed great power, showed his speed too, but what I was most impressed with was his power, and he accounted for himself very well. Offensive lineman Matthew Burrell at times had some crushing blocks. The big worry, though, was when he went down with an injury and was helped off the field. He had an ankle injury, but the good news for Buckeye fans is that he tweeted later on that he is fine, 100% healthy, and that is certainly good news for Buckeye Nation. Defensive end Draymond Jones was outstanding. He, interestingly enough, played on the West squad, and he batted a couple of passes, one of which was then intercepted and returned for a touchdown. And the reports leading up to the game were that Draymond Jones was outstanding in the practice sessions, and he carried that right over and had a very good game on Saturday afternoon. Linebacker Jerome Baker showed his speed on Saturday. He flew around to the ball very well. And then long snapper Liam McCollum, as I've become accustomed to having seen Liam, his snaps were very much on target. They got there quick and accurately, and he accounted for himself very well on Saturday. So overall, I think it was very positive as far as the Buckeyes' commitments performances in both the U.S. Army All-American Bowl on Saturday as well as the Under Armour All-American game on Friday.
Thanks, Bill. And late Sunday night, the Semper Fidelis All-American Bowl was held in Anaheim, California, and Ohio State commitment Joe Burrow was the starting quarterback for the East squad. The 2014 Ohio Mr. Football Award winner finished 9 of 12 for 128 yards and added 6 carries for 31 yards. No interceptions, no touchdowns. He looked good as usual as a passer and solid as a runner. I hate these all-star games that have 3 quarterbacks per team and rotate the quarterbacks every series. Burrow was the starter and only had 4 series for the entire game. But the bottom line is he played well and his team won 24-3. Last week during practices, Burrow told our Alex Gleitman, who was in Anaheim covering the Semper Fi Bowl, that he is 100% Buckeye. That's certainly good news for Buckeye Nation, because I think Burrow will be a future standout at the collegiate level. The other Ohio State commitment playing in the game was cornerback Carlton Davis from Miami, Florida. And he looked good as well. I mean, I really like this kid's game. Good tackler. We didn't see a lot of him in coverage, but we know, from his high school days that he's good in coverage. And, I like that he is likes to put his nose in there as a good tackler. He had a real nice tackle to thwart a touchdown attempt on a QB keeper on a 3rd and goal situation. Now, the only question, of course, is whether Davis will stick with his Ohio State commitment, but I think he will. I think he'll be a Buckeye in the end. Thanks again to Bill Kurelic, and thanks to you for tuning into the show. Take it away, best damn band in the land.